comes to music ministry, I guess the question for most of our churches is not whether or not we value it, but how with limited resources and experience can we pursue it? Well, whilst not claiming to be an expert or have all the answers, here are some thoughts about how we could begin to pursue effective music ministry. And the first thing is really important and maybe obvious, and that is to pray. So if in Ephesians 4, Paul asserts that God equips the church with word ministers for works of service, and we're agreed in Colossians 3 that music ministry is indeed a word ministry, then our primary recourse is prayer. Why not begin by praying for the musicians who already serve in your churches, that they would do it well? Pray also that God may raise up others who might begin to help develop the music ministry. Humbly ask God to equip the church with ministers for works of service. Well, secondly, focus. Bob Cawsey states in Music Matters that the purpose of sung worship is to encourage and motivate the gathered church to proclaim the gospel, cherish God's presence, and to live for God's glory. That means that the action isn't just with the musicians at the front, but is actually in and with the gathered church community. Now, that's good news for small churches, because it means that big is not always better. It is just as easy to lead a church on one instrument as is with an orchestra. This also has the secondary benefit of avoiding a couple of idols. The first of just coming to church and consuming for the congregation, and the second, the idol of performance for your musicians. Instead, we sing together and praise God together. But thirdly, character. That's not to say that our musicians aren't important. There is a sense that they are leading a ministry of church. And so I wonder if that means we need to consider the criteria by which we choose our musicians and those who serve in this ministry area. Do we need to use the same criteria as that we use for those who preach, teach, lead or pray in church? Well, however you come down on that, questions of character and reliability are obviously really important, but I'd add another characteristic, and that's of being teachable. Are your musicians willing to listen to you as you teach them the vision and values of your church and the direction you want to take music ministry? Are they humble enough to listen and to change the way they do things to better serve the church rather than themselves? Are they humbly willing to put in the hours of graft and to practice? That's because, fourthly, practice is really key. You may have heard of the 10,000 hour rule. It states that with 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, anyone can become an expert in their field. That's quite a thought, isn't it? That with 4 hours practice a day, in 6 years, you could become a concert pianist. Well, whether that's true or not, we do know that practice is important, don't we? And it's no mistake, actually, that the most gifted musicians and athletes and artists are also those who put in the most amount of time in practicing. So are your musicians willing to put in that hard graft and to practice? Practice to get better themselves as instrumentalists, but also practice together to learn how to play better together, how to serve the church better together. It might be that one of the best ways of facilitating this practicing is by identifying and equipping a music leader, someone who could do the musical bits for you, especially if you feel weak with music yourself. But in any case, resources are the last thing I'd like to point you to, because there are plenty of good resources out there. So EMU Music UK, Sovereign Grace Music and Music Ministry UK all have brilliant resources that are online at the moment that are easily accessible, that will help teach and train your musicians. There are also some great books: Worship Matters by Bob Cawsey, Worship by the Book, which is edited by Jon Cawsey. And if you can get hold of it, there's an old Bible study guide by St. Matthias called the Church Musician's Handbook. They're all excellent places to learn and to teach your musicians how to be better in church. And actually, really finally, the last thing is patience, because we know these things don't happen overnight. So be patient with your musicians and ask them to be patient with one another. But gradually, with small implementations, you can make your music ministry serve the church better. It might just be baby steps to start, like singing new songs or trying out new members. But little by little, it can make a difference and push you towards more effective music ministry.